Brothers and sisters, welcome. Father Frank Pavone here, National Director of Priests for Life, joined by Janet Morana, our Executive Director and the co-founder of Silent No More. Janet, welcome to this exciting event.
Oh, of course, it's so exciting. And people might be saying, oh, you guys are getting ready for the March for Life already? I said, absolutely.
As the March for Life is, too.
Absolutely. And of course, we will be there participating in our usual events. We'll have the expo. We'll have a beautiful new exhibit at the March for Life.
Yes.
And of course, what's really important is the morning of the March for Life. We have a prayer service that we have been sponsoring for many, many years.
Oh, yes.
At
25 years.
DAR Constitution Hall. And it's a beautiful service. Interdenominational prayers.
Yeah.
And every year, the committee meets and votes. And they honor someone in the pro-life movement who has done something very, wonderful over many years of dedication. And of course, the committee has met, and this program is all about announcing who the honorees are going to be.
Well, yes, and we wanted to do this in a special way, brothers and sisters, and invite you all into it. Janet, in the past, many times we've announced the honorees simply via an email or the announcement on our webpage, which, by the way, is nationalprayerservice.com. We ask you to bookmark that and stay tuned to that webpage for the details as they unfold as we get closer. But the big thing about this year's prayer service and March for Life, of course, is that it's the 50th year, the 50th anniversary of that terrible Roe v. Wade decision, which, of course, now we can rejoice has been overturned. But nevertheless, we continue to commemorate the anniversaries. That's very important.
Well, and, people are asking me that, Janet, why are we still going to Washington to march, being we overturned Roe? And I say, well, there's several reasons. Number one, as a movement, we haven't been able to celebrate together, really. We were some people were in front of the Supreme Court on June 24th, but as a movement, now we're marching with a victory. We finally overturned Roe. And of course, we know the job's not done, but we should come together as a movement and celebrate.
That's right.
Absolutely celebrate. And of course, we will mention that 2 days later, on the 22nd, in front of the Supreme Court, we will come together there in a solemn prayer vigil to honor the victims of Roe.
January 22nd, like you always say, is always going to be a memorial, just like 9/11, just like Pearl Harbor Day. These are days when, the country has to pause and remember
that we lost 63 million children and women died. So we can't forget that day. So for us, January 22nd we will never forget. But on Friday, January 20th, we are going to march and rejoice that this monumental step has happened. But first, we're going to gather in Constitution Hall, and we're going to pray, and we're going to honor a specific facet of the pro-life movement that actually, even before Roe v. Wade started and got going and was helping women choose life. And especially this year, we have to raise them up even more because, sadly, Father, they've been targeted by those pro-abortion loving Democrats, especially the shameful senators, have been attacking, and now I'm going to say what it is, the pregnancy center movement, right?
Yes, that's right.
And so we said, the committee met and said, you know what? They're attacking them, we're going to raise them up even higher to say they're doing wonderful work.
Well, wasn't it very telling that that was the immediate response from the pro-abortion people,
right?
Even before the Dobbs case was official, even
they
when
were
the
already
leak,
attacking
when the
them.
leak came out.
They were attacking.
They said, "Okay, that's it. We've had it. We're going to go attack these centers," and they're attacking them physically,
yes,
and also legally. Physically, the fire bombings, the graffiti, the defacing of
and so many of
centers.
these clinics, Father, they had to take from their budget to hire security.
Oh yeah,
to install security cameras. This is criminal what they've done to these centers.
So there's the physical attacks, and then when we say the legal attacks, Elizabeth Warren saying, "Oh, we have to pass all kinds of laws, because
stop these clinics."
And now people have been saying this for decades. They've been trying to say, "Oh, these are fake clinics, or they lie, or they're not medical facilities." Well, actually, you do have them as medical facilities all over the place.
So here's the announcement, brothers and sisters. Okay, the honorees are the pioneers, because there's plenty of people working the pregnancy center movement currently right now with over 3,000 centers nationwide. But we're going to be honoring the pioneers of the pregnancy center movement. And joining us on our program now today are going to be not all the honorees, and we're going to mention who they are, all of them, but a few of them were able to join us for this live broadcast. So let me make it clear. First of all, here's some of the honorees. You have, first of all, Birthright. Birthright was started way back when, and a representative from Birthright will be joining us in January to receive the honor. So Birthright is one. Then there's the National Life Center, founded by Denise Cocciglione, who cannot be here for the live broadcast, but on January 20th, they will be in Constitution Hall. Then we have
Denise, we should say, there are thousands of pregnancy centers now.
Right.
The fourth one opened up in her home.
Oh, yes.
Way back when. The fourth.
Yes. And actually, Denise Cocciglione was responsible for one of the early hotline numbers, and hers was 1-800-848-LOVE. So Denise will be joining us. She couldn't be here for the live broadcast, but she will be with us on January the 20th in Constitution Hall. And then, of course, there's CareNet. And CareNet will have a representative from CareNet. And they were started also before Roe. And they saw pregnancy center movement as something they should be doing as a mission field to help these women pregnant in need after Roe v. Wade. So a representative for CareNet will be here. And we knew some of the people from way back when, like people like Guy Condon, who's gone on to be with the Lord. So CareNet is also going to be acknowledged, along with Sister Paula Vandergeer, who unfortunately passed away last year, but she will send a representative. We will get a representative from the International Life Services. But now we have, also one more group who could not be with us on this broadcast is Tom Glessner with NIFLA, the National Institute of Family and Life Advocates. So they will all be in Constitution Hall. And that's why, brothers and sisters, you want to reserve your buses to get there in time. It starts at 8:30 in the morning. You'll be finished by 10:30, plenty of time to get to the rally. And if you go to the website, nationalprayerservice.com, all the information is there and how to sign up that you're going to come and bring your bus. But now joining us today are two other honorees. And Father, why don't you introduce them?
Well, the first center to open up in the nation's abortion capital, New York City, where we're both from originally, the one who started that way back then, he was working in advertising, and then he ended up counseling a 15-year-old mom to choose life, and this got him on the track of starting the city's first pregnancy center. And really, when you talk about New York City and you want to say, well, what are the pregnancy center options in New York City, this massive city, this massive abortion capital, you always end up going back to one person, Chris Slattery. And he's actually with us here on the program today. Chris, welcome, and it's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
We'll be hearing more from Chris and from our other honoree, whom we'll announce now also as this special broadcast goes on.
And Chris, I have to comment, when you think about it, Sister Paula in LA and you there in Manhattan, you two really were the ones to go against the 2 states that were killing babies even before Roe. And you guys rose up and said, wait a minute, we have to do something about this. So bravo for standing in the gap in the very early days.
And
Thank you.
Let me
introduce the other honoree.
One of the architects of the pregnancy help movement, and serving also as the president of Heartbeat International from 1993. We started at the same time. I started with Priests for Life. She started with Heartbeat. 1993 right through 2015. And she's now the chair of the board of Heartbeat, which is a massive network of pregnancy centers, not only across America, but around the world.
Around the world,
as the title implies, right?
Mm-hmm.
International
Right.
is Peggy Hartshorn.
Peggy, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be with you. Hi.
Great.
But for both of you now, this is going to be a great reunion, won't it? On Friday, January 20th, for you two joining all those others I mentioned, all coming together to pray together, get your awards, and have the pro-life movement. Hopefully we will pack the place to give a great applause to you, because, you know, you have really stood in the gap all these years, providing real help to women who are pregnant and in need. So, how does it feel being under attack now to get honored?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the great honor for the movement.
I was first sued by a New York Attorney General back in 1987. So it's deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had many attacks in between the 80s and now, but this attack now is unprecedented. It's extremely well organized, coordinated between the Democrat Party, all the major abortion groups, the media. They're all in on burying pregnancy centers, all kinds, from birth rights to the fully medical, with CareNet, with Heartbeat, Independence, you name it. Peggy knows this very well. The attacks have gotten violent and not only political, and I think they're just starting up. It's only the beginning.
Yes. Well,
and that's why we have to strengthen even our pregnancy center people, and that's why I think it's so important that we're getting this honor to you. And it's amazing. It really is. And we have another person who is trying to get with us. Hasn't quite joined us yet, but I just want to mention so everyone knows, we're also honoring Chris and Joan Bell, who also founded the very early network of maternity homes. Because while the pregnancy centers help that woman choose life, but then some women, they need a place to stay. And it's the maternity homes that add that extra piece. So there we have Chris Bell. And his wife, Joan, will also be honored on January the 20th. So welcome, Chris.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Great to have you.
And your work, as well as our association with you, goes all the way back to the 1980s. It seems like a century ago.
Right.
But here we are still in the fight.
I had more hair then. You looked as young as ever, Janet and Father Frank, and certainly wonderful Peggy and Chris. You know, it's wonderful to be a family like this, and to know each of you and everybody we know in between. And it's a blessing. And talking to another mutual friend, Helen Alvarez, she says, you know, it's never really seemed like work going out, talking and meeting people and helping women directly, because it's what God has asked us to do, and is a joy even in the suffering. And Chris is one of the happiest warriors. I don't know anybody who gets thrown more barbs and flaming arrows and you know, strung up there, but he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. A very happy warrior. And Peggy is always cheerful, no matter how many clouds are overhead or how many people are, you know, saying we're fake. And, you know, in our end, you know, taking women into the home, it's just a blessing. We had another baby born last week, healthfully and gratefully so. And, you know, every little face is another victory for life.
And one thing I want to comment for the people tuning in right now, to realize all these folks who I just mentioned, who started in the Pregnancy Help Center movement way back when, they had successful careers already. They were successful business people. Peggy was a college professor. I mean, these people had careers. And what they did was, when Roe v. Wade came about, they said, no, 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 no. We got to put our careers aside. I'm just leaving that career, and I'm going to do something about this, because we're not going to tolerate that they're killing babies in America.
Right.
So this is why you, as pioneers of the pregnancy help movement, have to be honored, because you could have been doing something else all these decades. Instead, you saw a calling. And that's why I tell people say, why do people just stay in this work for decades? Because it's not a job. It's a calling. And all of you responded to that call from the Lord to step in and do something. So I have to say, we are so delighted the committee voted to acknowledge you as pioneers in the pregnancy help movement, right?
Well,
Father?
Janet, I'd like to invite now each of those that we have here to share some thoughts, additional thoughts to what we've already said, and to encourage our audience and to encourage those that will be coming to DC for this special prayer service. And Peggy, if we could start with you, share with us some further thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Father and Janet. And it certainly is an honor to have our movement, our pregnancy help movement, being honored. Janet mentioned I was a former college English teacher. So I did prepare some remarks. Father said he'd give each of us about 10 minutes if we wanted it. And so I really want to share the importance of the pregnancy help centers around the country post Roe. It's something that, of course, the immediate thought of all of us in the movement when the Dobbs decision was announced, and people were saying, well, what now? And we said, number one, we're going to be doing the same thing that we've been doing for almost 50 years. Heartbeat International in 2021 celebrated our 50th anniversary. So we've been doing this for 50 years, and we're not going to stop. We're going to be doing it even more and even better. And some of you may not recognize or realize the tremendous extent of pregnancy help and what is actually being accomplished in pregnancy help. I just want to summarize a few of the statistics that we know from the Charlotte Lozier Institute, who's done several studies on the pregnancy help movement, very professional in measuring our effectiveness. Here are some of their conclusions from their 2019 report. From the years 2016 to 2019, 800,000 mothers were empowered to save their babies in pregnancy help centers that otherwise were very vulnerable to abortion. 800,000 saves. Now, we always say in pregnancy help, we don't save babies. The moms save their babies. The moms and the dads save their babies because they finally have the help and support that they need so that abortion is not their only alternative. So that's one of the accomplishments. Charlotte Lozier measures that we see in the pregnancy help locations around the U.S. By the way, there are 3,000 locations now in the U.S. of pregnancy help centers. And of that, 300 of them are residential care facilities. And you'll be hearing from Chris Bell on those wonderful parts of the pregnancy help movement. We save taxpayers about $270 million a year in services that we provide to women who otherwise might be having babies that are low birth weight, and that costs taxpayers quite a bit of money in healthcare. The kinds of social services that are often provided by taxpayers. We are providing those at no cost to the client in our pregnancy help centers. So $270 million in services is absolutely amazing per year. 1,290,079 packets of diapers. The maternity care, the maternity aid that we're providing to families in need is amazing in our pregnancy help centers. So that's our material resources. In any one year volunteering in the pregnancy help centers, we have about 54,000 volunteers at any one time volunteering in pregnancy centers, about 15,000 paid staff, which includes over 10,000 actual medical personnel working in the centers around the country. So it's a phenomenally successful operation in helping people choose life and change their lives, actually, because of all the support provided for families after that baby's born. Sometimes 2 years or 3 years after the baby's born, those families are still connected and being helped by pregnancy centers. So that's my number one point. I've got a few others that I want to make too about the importance of the pregnancy help centers. We are the hub of creating a culture of life in each community, because pregnancy centers themselves are connected to their local press, to their local businesses, their social services community, their medical community, their schools, their churches where they speak and recruit volunteers. They're training people in the community constantly for work. So we are the hub of creating a culture of life in every community where we are. And we're creating that culture of life one-on-one in the centers and in the maternity homes. We're creating a culture of life. I just want to tell a real quick story. We see this all the time about how helping one person creates a culture of life. And this is a story that I'll never forget, from a mom and one of her teenage daughters and her son who came to our Babies Go to Congress. She came with her baby, and that baby and the family unity was a result of the help of a pregnancy center in Kansas. And when she told her story, it was just amazing. This was an African-American family, and that's an important detail as I tell you the story. And the mother had been a single mom. She was working very, very hard. She got pregnant and she decided not to have an abortion. She really believed she wanted to keep this pregnancy. She wanted, she was pro-life. She did not want to have an abortion. The father of the child was pressuring her. Her own mother was pressuring her. Her 2 teenage daughters were pressuring her because they said, "Mom, you bring another child into this family. You're working hard enough. We want to go to school. We're almost ready for college. You cannot bring another baby into our family. That's not fair to us." All right. Now, this mom also had a 9-year-old son. She had to quit work because of difficulties in the pregnancy, and she ended up being evicted from their housing. Her own family was rejecting her. The pregnancy center took her in, found housing, helped the family, and eventually her beautiful little baby boy was born. Now, when they came to Babies Go to Congress, which is an event Heartbeat has to help moms and babies share their stories with their congressional representatives. And by the way, we come on at the March for Life. So some of them, I hope, Father, may be actually at the National Prayer Service as you honor the pregnancy help movement. But this mom and baby, when she told their story, it was so powerful because her teenage daughters now are absolutely pro-life. There's no way they would ever have abortions. They now absolutely love their baby brother and can't believe that they wanted their mother to have an abortion. Now, the 9-year-old son that was also in the family at this time and still is in the family, he sent with his mom to come to Washington. He sent a letter that he had handwritten to President Obama. And we got to see the letter. It was so touching. He was telling President Obama how important his baby brother was. And he was so thrilled that he had not been aborted and was now part of the family. And he begged President Obama to do everything he could to make sure that no babies would be aborted in the future. It was absolutely so touching. That's the kind of effect that choosing life for one child can have for an entire family and for generations to come. So we're doing that constantly in our pregnancy centers. A few more points, and I hope I'm not taking too much of time, Father, but of the importance of our pregnancy center movement as we go along in our pro-life activities for the next 50 years or however long we are going to be involved in this. Now it's important more than ever that we're there in the crisis for women who think they may be pregnant or are pregnant, because with the vast majority of abortions now being the abortion pill, and perhaps in the near future, abortions will be done almost 70% in the United States by the abortion pill, which must be taken early in the pregnancy. We don't have as much time to really help the moms make a decision as we did in the past. Excuse me. So it's crucial that we're there in the crisis. And Heartbeat's option line is a perfect example of that help. We're 24/7 in English and Spanish. We're there with phone calls, emails, chats to connect people to their local pregnancy center. So it's now more important than ever. Excuse me. There's a couple quick points I want to make, and then I'll conclude. Heartbeat says we need now to be in more people to be involved. We need to be involved in more places, and we need to have more paths to pregnancy help. And we're trying to help that with a program that we call Life Launch, where we're doing matching grants and helping people out there. Maybe some of your listeners feel God may be calling them to start a pregnancy center in their community. We have pregnancy centers, like I mentioned, 3,000 in the US, but they're only in 50% of all of the counties in the US. So we do need more, and Heartbeat's ready to help you start a pregnancy center if there's one needed in your area. I want to mention that one thing we love to say about pregnancy help is that the best alternative to abortion is another person. So we need more people involved in providing pregnancy help. And you can learn how to talk to a woman who may be considering abortion in a loving, caring way and help her make a decision. And we call it the love approach. So if you want to learn that, you can learn look at the loveapproachbook.com. There's lots of resources there where you can learn to talk in a loving, caring way and help a person make a life decision. And finally, I want to say that we are positioned, we're ready as a pregnancy help movement to partner with other parts of the pro-life movement, which we've always done. We are standing up for our religious freedom and our freedom of speech. We've been in many litigations, court hearings, court decisions. We're ready to stand up for that. And we want to partner with our legal community to make sure that our religious freedom in this country is protected, not just in pregnancy centers, but elsewhere. We are collaborating and working with the pro-life medical community, which is really coming to the fore now also, post-Roe. There's a new organization called Catholic Healthcare Leadership Alliance that we're working with to really, we can be a partner in rebuilding pro-life reproductive medical care in this world, and we're going to do that. We're also going to be helping the states as they keep saying, oh, we need to fund more pregnancy help. We need to fund more help for women and children in need so they don't seek abortion. We are ready to partner, ready and willing to work with states and see what they need in pregnancy help services. In 15 states already, pregnancy help centers are receiving some of the state funds that the state wants to invest in saving and changing lives. So with whatever pro-life organizations are out there, those that pray in front of abortion clinics, we're partnering with you, and we want to continue to do that. So I hope I haven't taken too much time, Father, but I hope it illustrates how important pregnancy help is and how important all the parts of our movement are post-Roe.
Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, Peggy.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your service as continued service to Heartbeat. Even though you're not the president, you are chairman of the board and continues to be a critically important role for the whole movement. I see that Joan has joined us together with Chris Bell. Welcome, Joan. And do the two of you have some further encouragement to share with our audience? By the way, we want to point out we're on many, many platforms right now, many diverse platforms. And
Facebook, Getter.
It's 1,000 people watching on Getter and many other platforms.
Father, I can't even dance. How can I be on so many platforms?
Welcome. Give us a word of encouragement.
Great to see you, Father and Janet. And we love you and honor all you do for the little babies and for all of us, for all your fellow pro-lifers.
You know, I have to say how encouraging it is to be together again with everybody here. And Peggy and I first met in Rome, and Father Frank, you may remember the 1995 or 96 gathering that the Pope called for pro-life leaders around the world. And Chris and I, well, I knew Chris, I think before Joan did, but that goes back to the 1980s. But I remember very vividly an experience. We were in front of, we peacefully, prayerfully sat in front of Planned Parenthood at that time, I think it was 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue. And afterwards, the police didn't arrest everybody that day. They pretty much closed the mill down. And then I walked over with Joan to 23rd Street for the first time to see what Chris was doing and his offices and how he's getting women right off the street. And of course, we have the maternity homes. So by the time we see a mom, she very often has met with a pregnancy center director, and it's determined she's got no place to go. And how often in front of the abortion mill, a woman says, if I don't have the abortion, I have no place to go. Nobody's going to take care of me. And then you say, well, there are homes, maternity homes. And at Good Counsel, we take in any pregnant mom who needs a place to stay. So, we have women who have mental health issues, who have drug addiction issues, who are simply abandoned. And this is such a great tragedy in our nation. And this is really the crux of why abortion, so many people fight to keep it legal. It's really a benefit for men. It's horrible to say that, but men have relations and they have no responsibility because they turn to a woman and they say, you can get rid of it. You don't need to have this baby. And then when she says no, when she really wants a child, they leave her, and there's no accountability. And even though they talk about, trying to get child support, very, very little effort is put into that, and not making men responsible for the children that they help conceive, then, it just continues. And so many men are selfish in this. And unfortunately, now the society is turned around where even women, they want the pleasure without the responsibility. When we know that the beauty of sexual relations, the awesomeness in creating life that God has given us, and God makes this the way, is between a husband and wife to be responsible. And it's heartbreaking because I look at so many young women in our 4 homes in the New York, New Jersey area. And these are girls, they're not prostitutes. They're not looking just for fun. They really were taught in government-run schools that you can have sex and use contraception, which has a natural failure rate. So they know it's going to fail. And then they conceive a child and they want a child. They're abandoned by the father and then by society that says it's okay for the guy to go scot-free. And that's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And these girls are heartbroken. So many of them just, feel like, where did I go wrong? I did what they taught me in school. I do what everybody's doing on TV and what everybody around me is doing. And how can I be so alone and abandoned? And, so I certainly at Good Counsel and maternity homes across the country. There are hundreds of maternity homes across the country. We have a national helpline, so we're networking with all of them. And they see moms and they try to keep them, they say, look, you can stay with us for a year or longer. So you can go back to school, finish school if you didn't. You can start a job. Being a home health aide is a quick way to get a certificate in a couple of months, and then you're employed. It's a very employable job. Or you can go on for other things. And as Peggy was saying, how the teenagers are pro-life. Now, the young children who were born, we had a mom speak at a banquet earlier this year. She was in our home 20 years ago. So her daughter is now in college with a scholarship. It's a rather prestigious college in the New York metropolitan area. And she's so sweet. And she has a scholarship, and her mother, it was overjoyed And she was saying, if it wasn't for good counsel, I wouldn't be the mother I am. Of course, we are blessed. We feel blessed that we were helpful as a bridge in that part of her life when she was in a crisis. And that's the blessing of our ministry, is to see women and children who are abandoned, alone, have no place to go, and we could see them grow educationally, vocationally, spiritually, and now they're wonderful members of society, and they're working and they're raising kids and just doing so many wonderful things. We say God is love, and love means life, creating life. What does God do? He creates life in abundance, and he wants to see more life. And we human beings have this opportunity to bring new life, new immortal souls into the world. And it's such a great gift. And even when there's a tragedy, even if it's a young couple where a spouse dies, still, we are a community to help, and we're called to help each other. And I think at this moment in our nation, where as I'm sure you've experienced, Father Frank, I know Chris, Peggy, maybe you too, if you go out to pray the rosary peacefully and prayerfully in front of Planned Parenthood, there are more people coming out yelling, screaming, cursing. It's a vile reaction. And I think it's so strong now because we recognize abortion is wrong. And in recognizing that, the people who have been involved in an abortion are hurting, and they have not been they have not found peace or healing. And so many of the pregnancy centers and maternity homes like Good Counsel, we have post-abortion healing programs. And Silent No More, of course, Priest for Life has a tremendous influence. And Janet, starting Silent No More, we are called on now more than ever to bring healing to our nation, to those who are broken and hurting, and don't know where to go to find peace. People who say they're atheists, or even those who say, I feel fine, I'm glad I had my abortion, but there's pain inside. We have to bring that message of healing and hope, to bring this nation together, and to see our nation grow in a loving way, because don't we have enough love in this country for another baby? And we do have enough love in this country also to forgive those. And we certainly know God forgives, but we too are here to forgive those who have fought against us, who have promoted and paid for and continued abortion. And of course, all of us know Bernard Nathanson. Chris was Bernard Nathanson's godfather, and Joan was Bernard Nathanson's godmother. And for those of you who may never have heard his name, he died in 2011. He was in many ways the father of abortion in America. And I say that because, first of all, he was a brilliant OBGYN. And he came out in the 1960s to say abortion should be legal. And then he attacked the Catholic bishops, and because he knew that they were opposed to abortion, he said, don't let those bishops tell you women what you should do with your bodies. And what he was also saying, not so subtly, is, guys, you can have free sex and have abortions and not worry about it. And he was married many times. In New York State, they legalized abortion in 1968, several years before Roe v. Wade. And he was the primary mover of that. And then, of course, the Supreme Court followed those bad decisions by the states. And in the 70s, God was working on him, and he had a change of heart. He started to see through ultrasound, which was still very new in his medical technology. It struck him the baby is real. Now, he had to have known it before, because you know how an abortion is. You have to take the child out piece by piece. But when he saw the baby moving, God worked on his heart. And then I referenced before that time we were in front of Planned Parenthood. It was Joan and I, many others. And then we walked over to Chris's place. Well, Bernard Nathanson was there, and you could see he was contemplating.
He did the rescue.
He was part of the rescue there. He was praying. He called himself an atheist then, but he was very quiet. Everybody's praying the rosary around him. He looked like he was mumbling the prayers, quite frankly. And I'll tell you something. I maybe never said this publicly before. I went up to him and I said, Dr. Nathanson, can I ask you a question? And he said, yes, as long as it's not about my soul. and that's exactly what I wanted to ask him. I wanted to ask him, you know, are you praying with us and you think God is talking to you? So he shut me up right then and there. But you know what? I realized even then, I don't have to say anything. God is speaking to him. I better shut up. So not too many years later, Chris was his godfather, Joan his godmother. He was baptized at St. Patrick's Cathedral. When he died, he was buried from St. Patrick's Cathedral, which, if nothing else, it shows how merciful the bishops are, because here he excoriated them for years. And it was because of him, you know, abortion came in against what the bishops wanted. And yet they forgave him and he was brought into the church. So, I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
I just want to say, so good seeing Chris Slattery. You look great. And I'm reminded of something. You have suffered so much. I heard that the angels in heaven only envy mankind one thing, the ability to suffer. So God bless you. Raise you down your share. And to tell you the truth, I think the Crisis Pregnancy Center, I mean, we need maternity homes, we do. But Crisis Pregnancy Centers, that's the real front line. That's the front line. You catch the mothers. And I've always thought what you do is just the greatest. And how you do it, I don't know how. I mean, it's like you're 100 different people all wrapped into one. You're incredible. We love you. And I know of all the little children you've saved and that you've loved them all. Those who were saved, those who weren't, you've loved them all. You're such an incredible example to us.
Right.
And
well, I just want to remind our audience that that's what this focus is. We are honoring you, the pioneers of the pregnancy help movement, on Friday, January the 20th in Constitution Hall at 8:30 a.m., way before the march. You'll have plenty of time to get to the rally, but we want you to join us in Constitution Hall so we can make a big amen there to show the pro-abortion politicians that you have a whole movement standing behind the pregnancy center movement, and don't you dare attack them, because you're going to have to answer to us. So right now, I want to hear from, of course, Chris Slattery from the Expected Mother Care in Manhattan. And I'm telling you, Chris, boy, you have really held strong there after countless attacks from the shameful attorney generals through the decades in New York. And of course, being a fellow New Yorker, I have to applaud you for finding very creative ways to push back against the pro-abortion movement there in Manhattan. So I'm very deeply honored, Chris, that you're going to join us to get that award. So a few words from you, Chris.
I think I'd like to make my message.
We can't hear you, Chris.
Oh, you can't?
No, now we can. Okay, bravo. Now we can.
Okay. Maybe I was on mute. I want to appeal to the viewers. Whether you're watching this live or on a replay, take a good examination of conscience about the talents that God's given you and how you can use them to save children and help mothers. You know, we all have many talents that God's given us. And I'll tell you what, using your talents for life-saving is one of the most important but rewarding activities you can engage in your life. My life was changed on a sidewalk one morning in 1981 or 82 when, without any training or preparation, one morning, wearing a 3-piece suit on my way to an advertising job with my briefcase, I got called over to a plaza that I happened to be passing by a sidewalk counselor in front of a 50-story office building. And she said, "Chris, do you know they're killing babies upstairs?" I said, "What? 7:30 in the morning. People going into this place here upstairs?" So anyway, I hung out, and here comes a black mother with her little daughter who's 15 years old. I can't remember what I said to them. I had no training. I had no brochures. I didn't know what to say, do, anything. All I know is I had the grace of God and the Holy Spirit. And 6 months later, I'm holding that 15-year-old mother's baby in my arms in her apartment in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn. And I'm saying to myself, oh my Lord, God used me to help save a baby. You can do this? You can actually save a child? I mean, I said, well, that's what it means to be pro-life, right? I mean, if we can actually engage one-on-one on a sidewalk in Manhattan, I mean, what could we do if we had an office? I didn't even know about pregnancy centers. I didn't even know what's a pregnancy center. So I started to, in the early 80s, I started to do my homework, and I found some people in different parts of the country that had done this work, read some articles about it, started researching. This is before the internet, looking at newspapers and then I realized, wow, we could go to scale with this. I actually started appealing to people in churches. 17 different pulpit appeals we did at all the masses in 17 churches in New York City. But you know what I also discovered? There was tremendous apathy. Why was New York the abortion capital of America? Why had we already killed 1 million children in New York City before I even found out about the movement? Apathy, coldness, indifference, fear, all kinds of vices get in our way. Preoccupation with making money, preoccupation with just our family, just our immediate friends. I was in advertising. We were selling products to the world. I worked with some of the great ad agencies, some of the great advertising geniuses. I was privileged to meet Mr. Bill Bernbach, the great ad genius. Got to know him. And you know what? After I saved that first baby, I had planted the seed in my own heart. God had planted it. And then I realized, well, maybe I can do something. In those times I was talking to all these parishioners, you know what I was doing? I was talking to myself. I talked myself into a pro-life vocation. I wanted to be a big ad man, but just like my father. And I was in that industry for 13 years. It's a long story, but bottom line is there are so many of you with businesses, talents, skill sets, whether you're in the medical profession, you're in transportation, you're in marketing, advertising. The pro-life movement needs every skill set out there. And we have a shortage. I'm in the Bronx, which had a 50% abortion rate for most of the last 52 years. We actually legalized, I have to correct Chris. We legalized abortion on July 1st, 1970. 52 years of abortion. I'm still running the only pregnancy center in the Bronx. Why? In Brooklyn, I'm running the only pregnancy center with pregnancy testing and ultrasounds. This morning, we counseled 9 women between these 2 offices in the Bronx and Brooklyn. I don't have enough help. I don't have enough people. I don't have enough board members. I don't have enough people to take over for me. I'm in the abortion capital, 8.5 million people. There aren't enough people engaged in this fight. This goes in many major American cities. We don't have enough people serving the expectant mothers because of apathy. So you're watching this show. Maybe you'll share it. But are you going to get off your duff? You're going to get off your laptop? Are you going to up your game? Are you going to increase your activism or your contributions if you're too old to get out? I'm getting to that stage. I'll be marching in the March for Life with a cane. I have stage 4 cancer in the colon and prostate. I had stage 4 cancer of my lymph nodes in 1970. But a pregnant woman who was going through a very rough pregnancy offered her suffering and sacrifice for me. And I was saved, and I was cancer-free for 50 years. God had big plans for me. I didn't know it at the time. I was only 15. It wasn't until my early 20s when I came back to God that I knew he began planting seeds that I had a special vocation. But all of us, you and I, have a special vocation. You're watching this program because you're intrigued. Oh, baby saving. Oh, Father Frank. Oh, Janet. Oh, Peggy. Oh, Joan. Oh, Chris. 2 Chris's. These people are onto something. Well, join in, huh? This is not a spectator sport. Each one of you, even from a hospital bed, with Zoom and all these tools we never even dreamed of when we started in the movement. I mean, how primitive were we in the early days, in the early 80s? We didn't even have VHS tapes.
No.
I mean, that was an advance for us.
Yeah.
So bottom line is, look, there's an enormous amount that you can do supporting Heartbeat, Good Counsel Homes, EMC, Priests for Life. But give your individual time. Please, we need you. We need you. Thank you.
Amen.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Thanks so much, Chris.
And like I said, the committee was delighted. It was a unanimous decision to raise up and honor the pregnancy help movement. So, brothers and sisters, you have this announcement now. We want you to make a commitment to show up on Friday, January 20th, 8:30 a.m. for the at Constitution Hall in DC. The doors will open at around 7 a.m. There'll be a mass at 7:30, and then the interdenominational prayer service will start at 8:30, and you'll be gone by 10:30 in order to get plenty of time to the rally. And pay attention to what Chris said. We need you all in the battle, joining us, because like you, Chris, and Peggy, and Joan, and Chris, Father and I have been at this a long time too, over 30 years. And people, I just turned 70, and people say to me, so Janet, when are you retiring? I'm like all of you. When the Lord calls us home, that's when we retire. But we need some other people to come and alongside us and come on, let's go. Because, that there's plenty of work to be done and plenty of babies to be saved.
Well, and many people are making their bus plans now for the March for Life.
Right.
And parishes are deciding, and groups are deciding. So incorporate, friends, the National Prayer Service into those plans for Friday morning, January 20th. So I want to thank our honorees. We're going to conclude with a prayer here, and then we're going to show you, going to give you just a little feel of this national prayer service with a little clip that we have, and that'll close us out and lead into our outro. But let's pray together, all of you who represent those that are being honored. There are several others, like you announced earlier, Janet, and let's just lift up all these efforts to the Lord. Father, we thank and praise you today for the movement that you yourself have inspired in your people. Lord, this movement is not called by somebody from on high, either in the religious or the secular arena, but rather arises from your spirit working in the hearts of human beings who know that we must protect our children. It's as simple as that. And people have come together across kitchen tables and workplace water coolers and on the street corners of America. You have moved your spirit to inspire them to rise up and save lives. Bless the pregnancy center movement. Bless the maternity homes, the medical clinics, all those who have pioneered these efforts and all those who work in these efforts today. And may we together as a movement honor, Lord, what you have done in the hearts of your people as represented by our honorees and the ongoing work of this life-saving mission. We ask all this in the name and through the power of the author of life and the conqueror of death, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Holy Spirit, amen. So Peggy and Joan and Chris Slattery, thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's look at that clip now, okay?
And Janet, and thank you for your reflections. We'll let them see the clip and close out the program with that. Friends, it's been a pleasure announcing to you today our honorees for the 2023 prayer service. And
we hope to see you there.
That's
Make
right.
your commitment now. Go to nationalprayerservice.com and register your bus. Let us know you're going to be there.
God bless you all.
But you know what? When you and I take up this call and we talk about abortion, if we speak about it in church, we're told we're too political. If we speak about it in the political arena, we're told we're too religious. If we speak about it in the world of the media, it's too disturbing. In the world of business, it's too distracting. In the world of education, it's too controversial. In the streets, it's too disruptive. So abortion, if abortion is wrong, where do we go to say so? We go into the churches, we go into politics, into the media, into business, into education, and into the streets. Some churches haven't wanted to get involved in political hassles with the government, and so they've been silent on abortion. They didn't want to get involved in hassles from the government. They didn't want to take the fight to the government. So now with the HHS mandate, the government took the fight to them. And when it comes to that mandate, we've got a simple message for this administration. We will obey God rather than men. As Alveda can tell us, her uncle said one day to the civil rights movement, we've got a lot of obstacles in our way, but we're not going to let anything turn us around. We're not going to let no dogs turn us around, no water hoses turn us around, no police clubs or jail sentences, and we're not going to let any injunctions turn us around. And so today I say to you, in the pro-life movement, no Planned Parenthood is going to turn us around. No biased media is going to turn us around. No HHS mandate is going to turn us around. No Obama administration is going to turn us around.